On this episode of Grape Street TV, we gonna hop into part 2 of growing up in a culture with a Mexican moms that was involved in the gang culture. Straight up. If you ain't hit that like or that subscribe button yet, then that's what you need to be doing. But if not, y'all already know the deal with me, man. I'ma bust y'all across y'all head with some knowledge every time, man, straight up. And make sure y'all hit that bell for all notifications. So when I drop these reactions right here, they pop up on your timeline like the chicken pox. Boop, 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 boop. Y'all already know the deal with me, man. Listen, tap in. Make sure y'all jump in them comments and hit that like. That's gonna determine on, if we gonna jump into part 3 of this after we done with part 2. So we gonna pick back up, when I was like 8 years old. I was outside, playing. And I seen a man, walk into a vacant house with a bag. And, within minutes, you hear gunshots. You see a few people run. So, we waited for a minute. But, back in the days, in the 80s, it was like, that was normal. So, people rarely had caught the cops. So, as me and a friend, made it to the vacant house front door, we was both debating on, who was gonna go to the back and see what was going on. So we both mustered up the strength and the courage to walk to the back. And as we start walking, you can see a man's legs hanging out. You can see his shoes. So how the vacant house don't really have no curtains. So the sun was shining right through the window. As soon as I turned to walk in the room, I looked down. The man had a hole right between his eyes. And he was still bleeding out his face. As we quickly was making our way to the exit, you can hear like 2 women outside talking. So when we exit the, vacant house, they was looking, and one of the women was pointing in the direction where we was at, and they quickly start to walk towards us, so we quickly start to walk off. So I wanna say like 4 hours later, it was like, dark outside, and we end up stumbling upon the same location. As we was looking, you see a police car, and we seen the same lady that was with the other lady that was pointing at us when we was exiting the vacant house. She was identifying the guy that was in the backseat of the police car as the police flashed the light on the suspect. That particular day, it taught me a lot, like how my pops used to tell me and my mama used to tell me, never snitch, No less than a week later, the lady house was set on fire. So yeah, that was me, 8 years old, experiencing my first dead body, and also experiencing the consequences and the repercussions that come with running your mouth, snitching on somebody. I wanna say about like 2 weeks later, trauma hit my life again, My mom said went out to a party and, they got into it with, I guess, a set of enemies. And it was a lot of fighting that went on, a lot of stabbing. People got ran over by cars, and, somebody was set on fire. So, back in the days, it was like basically a lot of fighting, more fighting than, shooting. So my mom's ended up going to jail, facing 18 years. And, she ended up getting a lawyer and busting her time down. I think she did like a little bit over a year. But within that time, I was sent to live with my aunt as my dad was still in the streets. So within this time with my mom being locked up being in jail, you know, I found myself venturing off to the places where she used to always try to keep me from, you know. Found myself, you know, running wild in the projects and adapting to, you know, a lot of the ways that I was already adapted to. Around that time, you know, it was a lot of basketball playing going around, like basketball tournaments. That's what a lot of older cats was doing, you know. That was like still in the youth type of age range. So, you know, I ended up taking a like to like an older cat, go by the name of Gio. And, you know, he took a liking to me due to my mind frame. And during this time frame, you know, I took a liking to the hustle. I fell in love with the fast life, watching the older guys get money and buy fresh tennis shoes, you know, on their own. So I wanted to be involved, so I started standing and hanging out, you know, around cats like Payan, Big BK, E-Rock, the older homie Dooney. They was like, you know, at that time, a lot of people were selling rock, so I found myself, you know, bouncing the ball, holding a gun, with a pocket full of drugs. So when the police used to roll up, I used to walk off, bouncing my ball. So by this time I was, you know, 9 years old, and I was used to getting everything I wanted from my mama, due to my mama, you know, being in the gang culture, selling drugs, always having money, going to work, my pops in the streets, you know, making money in the streets. But, you know, I was placed in the house with my aunt, and she had more kids, so I would use, you know, the money I would make in the streets to go buy shoes and clothes and all the stuff my mama used to buy me. So I kind of grew up fast, you know, turned into a grown man without his mother and father running the streets. So I was back and forth, you know, between the cultures of my family, being around the south sides and being around the east sides, you know. And I would go around, you know, the Mexican side of my family, and I would be introduced to the culture as far as, you know, people getting courted on. A lot of the activity that was going on, you know, with the south sides was like towards like the 107th Street. We had the Saucitos Auto Shop, you know, that was owned by my family. A lot of people went there to hang out, play basketball, you know. It was black and brown together. And due to me hanging on that side, you know, where my family at, I started learning a lot, you know, like how they had Colonial Watts, Watts Colonial Wigan, Watts Colonial Primera, and, you know, a lot of dudes was from Colonial Watts or Watts Colonial Primera, you know, before Grape Street, because they wanted to start a clique, and, you know, it was gonna be based on Grape Street, and they really didn't want it. So that's when kind of like the split went up. Some turned Grape Street, WVG, and, you know, some stood Colonial Watts, but it was quarter gang. That was the main function at the time. So around that time, you know, between the blacks and the brown, like, as everything was changing, you know, I was really growing up in the culture and watching everything unfold. Like I told y'all in part 1, you know, all this is coming from self-experience. It's not coming from hearing something from somebody else. It's called witnessing it with your own eyes. Make sure y'all run the views up on this, you know, this reaction right here. Hit that share button, hop in the comments, so we can push for part 3, you know. We gonna talk about more of the quarter gang and the green jackets and the Jordan Downs. When it was Jordan Down Crips, you know, but it was green jackets before it. In part 3, we gonna also talk about, you know, how my mom got out of jail and life had changed and my life was headed in a different direction, you know. And we gonna also talk about my first time in juvenile hall at 10 years old. These are all original stories, you know. Like I said in part 1, I do not go to other people's videos, you know, to look up history on Watts or Grape Street or any kind of, you know, part of the gang culture. Everything I speak on is all facts, self-experience. And I also want to say, rest in peace Payan, rest in peace Gio, rest in peace Big BK, and rest in peace Big Spur Dog. And we came for forget Dirty C, original Baby Loke off the back streets. Had some cold hands on him. He used to be whooping on niggas. Straight up. We also gonna get into that on part 3. With all that being said, part 2 is officially coming to an end. And if you ain't hit that like and that subscribe button yet, that's what you need to be doing. But if not, y'all already know the deal with me, man. I'ma bust y'all across y'all head with some knowledge every time, man, straight up. And make sure y'all hit that bell for all notifications. So when I drop these reactions right here, they pop up on your timeline like the chicken pox. Boop, 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 boop. Y'all already know the deal with me, man. Listen, tap in.